the years, successive governments have endorsed the creation of new districts as a means of facilitating development and reducing poverty. A recent study into the proliferation of new districts and constituencies in Ghana by IMANI Africa in collaboration with Cudjoe has, however, raised serious questions. Now, has the creation of new districts really resulted in poverty alleviation, or has political expediency overshadowed consideration to the functional effectiveness of districts created? To discuss this and more, I have with me Franklin Cudjoe. He's the president of IMANI Africa, and you're watching The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akusia Kunedu Asante Samuels, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes, Dawa Industrial City, and Paul's Fitness Gym. You are watching The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes, Dawa Industrial City, and Paul's Fitness Gym. Franklin Cudjoe, president of IMANI Africa, it's in our studio. Welcome to The Hard Truth.
Pleasure to be here again. I haven't seen you the whole of this year.
Yes, I saw you last year.
Right.
So you owe me my birthday present and
okay.
Christmas and Easter.
Don't worry.
And Mother's Day.
Yeah,
a lot. I'll send you my list.
Oh, please do. I'm pretty sure once we are able to chase Kenny GVG away, the part of that money will be given to you.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'm sure we can do that.
At least $1 million won't be bad, don't you think so?
Is that all you want?
I'm so cheap, but it's good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
But really, IMANI Africa, in collaboration with, I think, Cudjoe, recently launched a report titled The Proliferation of a New District and Constituencies in Ghana, and then the mismatch between policy objectives and outcomes and impact. What is the background, Franklin, to the study, and how does the findings reflect on the decentralization process in Ghana?
Well, thank you very much. We've been living a lie that the way to solve poverty is to divide the country up into bits and pieces, dice it up, and then make it look as if governance will be brought closer to the people. And because governance will be brought closer to the people, then automatically poverty will reduce. If you look at the data clearly, poverty has been reducing, already been reducing. As we speak, there's about 26% of people who are hardcore poor. That if you look at it critically, you can say about 30% of Ghanaians are actually poor. The poverty that we are facing, or the poverty statistics we have right now, has never been due to the fact that we have divided the country up into bits and pieces. It is the availability of resources. These resources able to reach persons and people who are far removed from the center or the central district or the central affairs. It's the only reason why we've seen these kinds of statistics actually being churned out and showing clearly that we may be doing well on the poverty ladder. It has never been the case that because we erected administrative structures and then had representation as in members of parliament and district chief executives, then automatically poverty declined. In fact, there's no proof in any part of the world that this is the way things go in terms of reducing poverty.
But successive governments have over the years consistently maintained, that in order to bring development to the doorsteps of the people, it is necessary to create more districts. Yet your report find this view to be flawed, indicating that there is a little evidence supporting it. Why then is government, persistent in following the trajectory of, always creating new districts, not yielding anything?
Because as you know, politicians are quite lazy, and the only way they perpetuate themselves in power is to give themselves employment, create avenues for employment. And so they think that by erecting bureaucracies across the country and having their own or their kind being represented in every nook and cranny of the country, then automatically they may be doing, or they be seen to be doing something very productive. It is not the case. This is me sounding the typical, very skeptical, commonsensical analysis. But of course, the data actually even vindicates what I'm saying.
1992, 45 districts, 2004, 28, 2008, 32, 2012, 78, 2017, 38.
That's a 232% increase in the number of MMDAs that have been created. And we juxtapose that with the amount of money we spent on them. there are car allowances, there are housing allowances, there are all kinds of allowances, doesn't justify the sort of results that we are actually faced with.
Do you have a problem with the numbers, or it's not just necessary having more districts?
Well, look, I have a problem with the numbers because the land size of Ghana hasn't changed since time immemorial, since we became independent. In fact, since Ghana, as it is known today, was born, we haven't added an inch to our land size. Land has always been in situ. So the fact that we know the land size and the fact that we rather have had a lot more people trying to represent every nook and cranny of the land size is what actually gets me angry. Because let me just digress a bit. I've traveled far and wide. I've been to Australia. I've been to the UK. I use Australia here because in Australia is almost like a continent. Right? Roughly the same population like Ghana, but it's a continent. Ghana can go into Australia in terms of land size probably 15, 20 times. But they are the same population, almost the same population size, and they have 150 members of parliament, right? Of course, they have a second house, which is made up of people who are well-to-do already. I mean, it's just an advisory body of 70, 75 senators, more or less, right? If Australia had adopted the approach we are adopting by creating constituencies, districts, and all kinds of things, then what they are going to have is that Australia will actually end up having probably 30
but
times
frankly,
more.
isn't there sense in what they're saying? They are bringing development to the doorstep, so let's just have it in smaller
Yeah, but
units.
I'm just suggesting to you that Australia is the 12th largest economy in the world. You are somewhere, no, you don't even count, right? Nobody knows what
we do count.
Well, position-wise, you don't count. You're doing business in this country. You occupy 120th position out of 189 countries, right? I mean, I'm trying to use proxies here. But when I say you don't count, I don't know what, like in terms of the size of the economies of the world, I don't know what position Ghana occupies. But I'm just using the case of Australia. Almost the same population size. Landmass far vast. Many more times Ghana would enter geographically into Australia than you would have than the opposite. But they do not have a gazillion number of persons representing them at every nook and cranny, and they are wealthier. And even in that country, when you go, you find out that the ministries of lands, the agencies of lands, forestry, and agriculture have been merged into one ministry, with desks representing these three entities. But you, who are probably more poorer and want to be so showy, believes that you can divide up all these entities into several forms and then have your kind, which are politicians, not my kind, by the way, to be representing us in these kinds of PISA-like structures. So PISA-like structures in terms of the agencies, the bureaucracies that are created, and then the districts and the constituencies that are created. This country can do with about 70 members of parliament. If I'm charitable, maybe 75. We do not need 275 members of parliament. Because as Odikro's work had shown, not even a quarter of the numbers that we have actually have been productive in terms of contributing to the bottom line of this country.
I see, but
sitting in parliament and probably raising your hand and making faces
once in a while. But there's been accusations, frankly, that government usually embarked on, the creation of district for political reasons, rather than developmental goals. Has political convenience, frankly, overshadowed attention to the functions or effectiveness of the districts created?
Well, I told you a while ago that the reason for creating districts and constituencies is to take care of politicians, right? It's a job-creating avenue for them. So I'm not surprised that the issue has come up about gerrymandering, which again is a necessary consequence of trying to politically arrange or give jobs to your kind, and so they dice up the country into bits and pieces. So it's political convenience rather than economic sense, really. I mean, look.
And you have evidence to support this, or reports?
You don't have evidence, but the evidence is here. You saw the report. It clearly shows. What else could be motivating people to be dicing up the country into bits and pieces when in actual fact we don't seem to be getting any necessary benefit from it? Maybe part of the reason has also been because we haven't capped the number of constituencies, number of districts that we should have, right? The law is too vague, and maybe that's where we need to attack this. We need to cap it so that we will no longer be creating unnecessary constituencies, which would then lead to districts. I mean, why should set some of these districts in this country be supervising trees and maybe stray animals? I mean, because that's the way it is, really. I mean, if you look at some of these districts, you go to them, you only see vast expanse of land and nothing. But these persons will be given some autonomy in terms of money, given some security, given some all kinds of allowances at our expense.
But again, according to your report, some metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies created in the past failed to meet statutory population requirement. Yet we are commissioned, or they are commissioned and granted legal backing to operate.
But that's the fraud.
Worrying. And why has government not held the account for such violations?
It's not even government. You and I, and then a lot more people in the public who should actually be following these matters should be getting more angry, because it's not in the interest of the politician to check these things. So you give a cap, you give a particular number as to what exactly should constitute the creation of a metropolitan area. You don't meet it, but then somehow fraudulently these things are assigned and the names are given and then constituencies are awarded. I see them as awards, really. They are not really real enterprise enhancing reasons for creating this district. So there you have it. But even in spite of the fact that there are statutory laid down regulations as to what constitutes a metropolis, a district, or a large township, what we are submitting to you from the report is that you don't necessarily even need to follow those. Because at the end of the day, what you truly need is resources actually going to these places. Look, Hawaii district, from where I come from, we don't need to be part of another region called OT region. It's completely senseless. You know why? Because we are closer to Hawaii. And in any case, if we want to access certain services, we are closer to Hawaii. But the real issue really has to do with our ability to access services. And accessing services does not necessarily mean that we should create all kinds of administrative structures. Everything going on right now in terms of regional creations and all of that is a facade, because it is part of the ruse to tell people that we will bring development closer to you. Fact of the matter, why should the state continue to employ teachers, nurses and all of that? If we need all this, if an area needs it, you only go and get it provided. At best, what it is that could be done is that somebody has got to be paid for this anyway. If you are suggesting that a group of people should be able to organize themselves into some form of governance, then, well, maybe, yes, but let the people decide for themselves how they want to live their lives. You don't sit in Accra and take the map of the country and divide it up into pieces. But you also realize that
districts are created in their strongholds, I mean, when you look at it critically.
As always, all the political parties from time immemorial have carved out new districts in order to water down the strongholds of the perceived opponent. That's what has been happening, and that's gerrymandering, really. So there's nothing scientific about this
creation of new
districts and regions, except to perpetuate the fact that politicians ought to be seen everywhere as if they are gods. But they are not.
Right. But the Vice President, your Vice President, Kofi Bento, proposes that government and policy makers ought to have, boldness to review created districts, that are viable by merging them or something like that. Do you share his view? And do you really believe that this can happen, merging a district?
Overwhelmingly, yes. Kofi is a pragmatist. We at IMANI, we cut through the chase. We don't talk, we don't speak in roundabout terms. And he has also said that, look, government has become the fastest growing industry in this country, far more industrious in a negative manner than the private sector. And this is one of the reasons why it is so. To the extent that you've diced up the country into several districts, some are non-productive, the best way forward is to go back, review, and merge some of them
But
back
this
again.
will mean that some DCs will have to go, some district capitals will have to be scrapped.
Who really
Do you
cares
think people
about
will really,
DCs?
be okay to
No, but
mesh them?
you see, we make it look as if DCs are returning in the proper values. I mean, not long ago, we had a DC totally bereft of ideas, was saying cheer, and all kinds of things. The kinds of people that are appointed to be DCs sometimes are drunkards. Sometimes you don't even know the value they bring, but for the sake that they have party colors and party cards. I mean, we need to speak in brutal terms. We need to start. Maybe that's the only good thing that Nonado seems to be trying to do right now, for which his own party has even delayed and deferred that dream, rather sadly. That is to elect our metropolitan, municipal, district chief executives as well. But there's no excuse to add more to the existing poverty-stricken districts and metropolis that have been created. You live in a country where about half of the people cannot access proper sanitation. You seriously think by dividing up the country and putting DCs and teetotalers as heads of places would solve the issue of sanitation? You have 54 ambulances working when you need 1,000 ambulances that should be befitting for a population of almost 30 million. And you think that by dicing up the country and putting some people you call DCs would solve the issue of the lack of ambulances? The ambulances are 55. Just 3 days ago, one broke down. So they are now 54. Now. You think you have an organized country like this? You think it's a truly civilized country? That we should be dividing up the country and then automatically, because we put some human beings, we buy V8s for them instead of buying ambulances. Look at how the politicians have been dying like flies. And they are dying in taxis and all kinds of things. You seriously think that is the way to organize and rule a country? You think by dividing, creating OT region, where I come from the region, so I think there's a reason why I find it very offensive. Because
you mentioned that earlier, but frankly, the Deputy General Secretary...
No, I was just going on and on about some of the examples I want to give you. Sanitation is one.
You've mentioned
why
OT already,
a teacher fell headlong in toilets because they couldn't have proper toilets, where most of our young girls actually go to schools and they have to struggle with sanitary pads because that's one, and they don't have proper toilets. Or you see all these SS students who are in schools today who are sleeping outside mosquito-infested buildings, and you think that you can solve it by creating new regions and districts? That's fraudulent.
I see. But the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, Nana Obriyagwa, I think Brahim, have different, or he has a different view. In fact, he believes that merging the district would, be political suicide. Would the government really want to travel this path?
Until you hit a snag, you probably wouldn't realize the mess you are actually in. Until it got to a point where, and actually we've already hit that snag. But as you realize, the government has craftily decided to cap the amount of money they give to districts and all of that. And the districts are crying. They say, okay, we'll cream off what we give you already. You know why that is happening?
Why?
Because there isn't enough to go around. Because there are all kinds of social interventions like free SHS that is being done. That was not thought of properly, by the way. And so now we need to cream off some of the monies going to DCs and MMDCs in order to do that. So it is coming. You get there and you realize that you've been joking all along into an abyss. So even if we do not find that these would eventually lead to the realization that we need to now merge, I mean, what is suicidal about asking a few DCs to go and become messengers in their political parties?
Will it be easy?
I mean, what's the point?
You're talking like it's going to be like that. Will it be easy?
That definitely ought to be easy. But I'm saying, and I've got to be charitable to the president, I think the president got it right, 100% right, when he said that even though we've made fundamental mistakes by appointing DCs who are party representatives, some are messengers and all sorts of things, into party positions.
Did he say some were messengers?
No, he didn't say, but somewhere we know, from days immemorial, we know. I mean, what are you talking about? Come on, we are parties of this country. We know that some of the people who are appointed disease and all kinds of things. In any case, the point is that the president has realized that, well, we need to elect people directly, which is a good thing. But we are saying go beyond it. Stop. Don't create any new regions. Don't create any new constituencies, because we are tired of the numbers we already have. Unfortunately, even though he suggested that, his party has managed to find a way of shortchanging him, and now he says that the elections will come in 2021. Mm-hmm. That I believe was the biggest legacy of Nana Addo. It's not one district, one factory, none of those. The biggest legacy of President Nana Addo would have been the election of our local government leaders. But now the dream has been deferred. I hope it is actually realized. But let's not kid ourselves for once that we think that we can develop this country by dividing it up into bits and pieces. It has never worked anywhere else. Of course, in far advanced countries, you are seeing consulars and all of that. All these things are done because even there, you find out that the levels of democracy and representation are actually high. Yeah, people pay taxes. They don't know what they do. Your ministers go and sign contract, hide the contract, only for some people to get to know, and they tell you, we won't tell you which people are behind the contract. We don't have a truly democratic state. You have a flagging democracy, which is rooted in shouting. You say it, I also say it, and then the matter dies. But in terms of real development, I don't think we are doing any better.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Hard Truth, proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes, Dawa Industrial City, and Pulse Fitness Gym. Founding President IMANI Africa, Franklin Cudjoe, is still here. Now, sir, we have had many instances where government have often received requests from people, including chiefs, civil society groups, and community leaders, to create a new district for them. Now, could it also be the case that government yield to the pressure, even though it's not viable to create a district?
You see, there are two issues here. Because as a result of the act of gerrymandering, that fraudulent way of carving out districts and regions out of another in order to water down the strongholds of a particular party, what then happens is that because some sort of a district administrative structure is erected so close to the heart of the people who believe that they are closer to the party in office at the time, the others who feel a bit removed, when they get their turn, they now find a way of then making a representation to the next party in office to say, well, you see, they're going to erect this capital here. We also need our capital.
Yeah.
So this is the only reason why. In fact, the NPP itself had been on record suggesting that Nana Addo actually went to the Western region and the people asked for it. And I'm saying that that's no basis to be creating all kinds of structures all over the place.
There are many requests for the establishment of new district. It is not peculiar to Aguna alone. All over the country have received requests for creation of new district. This is President Mahama 2016 during the inauguration of the Aboduman Community Day School in the Central Region. So Nana Addo's case is not.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's the latest. The point I'm making is that every now and then every president comes and says, people have come to me. Well, if people rose up from the dead and came to you and said, accompany me to the next world, would you go? Would you want to go?
Me?
Yes.
Of course not.
Yeah. So if somebody came from the dead, I'm just trying to give, it's probably not a perfect analogy. But if everybody wakes up and comes to you and says that, oh, please, we need a district here, we need a structure here, we need all kinds of things here. Even if you are Captain Planet, would you want to go ahead and do that? Knowing fully well that resources are probably finite. What about the ingenuity of the people? I've been worried. In 2013, we were doing some work with WaterAid, and we traveled to a farm place. We met this district chief executive with a planner, and I asked the planner, and I did land economics, so I know what planners can do. And I asked the planner, so what are you doing? What potentials have you found in a farm place that you can help He said, well, there's a lot of potential. Unfortunately, I don't have any directions, any directives to do anything. I'm just an armchair planner. Why? Because some order needs to come from above. And his DCE, whom we struggle to meet, his whole game plan was now to scheme to become DCE of the next district, which was going to have 80% of his IGF taken. Because he was DCE of the area which has Mamikrobo as a market. And Mamikrobo, the market alone was giving him 80% of his internally generated funds. So he was happy. Without doing anything and thinking and doing anything, he got 80% of the IGF. Now, through some means by which the previous government decided to carve out new districts, he was going to lose Mamikrobo market. So his whole game plan is to scheme to become DC of the next district that has Mamikrobo market. When you go on this path, this is the kind of ingenuity.
So what must the government do? I mean, this is what the people are calling for. We want more district, and then they promised them. Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Well, they should tell them the truth. The fact of the matter is that they are only able to keep promising nirvana to these people and eventually deliver it simply because they believe by so doing they will get votes. But the people themselves, and as the research has shown you, there's no correlation between having districts and solving poverty. It has never happened. I mean, there's a rich scientific work that was done, showing clearly. So we now have to show it to them. We've already showed it to them, back to the government and say, look, the basis for you creating all these unnecessary districts is not rooted in science. It's only a self-perpetuating mechanism of employing your kind. That's all. That's all there is. There's nothing scientific about this.
But concerns have been raised regarding transparency in the creation of districts. IMANI research, we recommend making the process for district creation and demarcation as transparent as possible. Who do we say, or what do we say the process is transparent enough? I mean, is there anything, the criteria to say, yes, this process, it's transparent enough?
Well, the criteria,
and how exactly do we achieve that?
First of all, when we say that there must be transparency, we mean that if you did a proper value analysis, you'd realize that ultimately you don't even need to create any. That's one. Secondly, if you truly were going to create, you must do the proper productive analysis. Districts in this country, at least as before the new ones were created, were probably worth about $1.5 billion each. That's nothing. The question is, how do the already existing districts actually perpetuate themselves in terms of productivity to ensure that they are able to, create livelihoods for their own kind? It is not a matter of saying that, well, you are going to create new, so let's have a process which is transparent. Transparency will not come about only because you bring together chiefs and some people who march to Accra or go and hold some forum and for people to say we want it. Some people say we don't want it, then they put it to a vote. That's not transparency. That's maybe on the side of voting, but they are voting for something they don't actually need. So it doesn't mean that can be transparency. Transparency will only come about here when you then ask yourself, on what basis are we dividing up this district? So I'm
sensing lack of education. So do the community do they understand the needs of such districts?
They don't even understand because they assume that by creating districts, all of a sudden, there's problems to be solved. Look, my own area, there was a Mempasem, Akpafu, there were districts that were created some time back under the rules, under the belief that automatically things will solve. Our livelihoods will get better. It didn't happen. Eventually, most of those areas decided to withdraw and then became part of Hawaii district, right? Today, I've heard that some people going around claiming they want to build an OT region, claiming they received all kinds of things that they want to build OT region.
Franklin, you and your OT.
It is one of the most annoying, absurd, frankly delusional enterprises I've ever had in the Fourth Republic. To think, and thankfully my paramount chief, together with some eminent persons, did a proper analysis, and we came to the conclusion that we are never going to join that OT region, but it's a completely nonsensical to say that Lolobi Kumasi, together with Yasim, together with Lolobi Ashambi, and all those places should go enjoy a fictitious region to be created under the guise that our lives will be better. Our lives are already getting better. We don't need any creation. In any case, you see, let me tell you how absurd and silly the thing it really is. If you know Ketekrachi very well, you've got to cross the river
Not so
Volta.
much.
Well, you've got to cross the river Volta to access a service like if we were to believe the New OT region. What it means is that Lolobi, which is about 5 kilometers away from Hawaii, would now have to go all the way to Ketekrachi to go and access services, cross the river Volta, probably on canoes. And the river Volta is full of tree stumps and all. People may even be capsizing and die in the process. This is the sort of enterprise we have been imbued with, and believe that our lives will be better. So I'm giving you living examples all across the country. All those people believing that their lives will be better when these new regions are created, they are deceiving themselves. You don't solve the problem of the lack of ambulances in your district. They should ask themselves, you don't know how much it costs to get an ambulance. You don't know how much it costs to buy a V8. It's about $200,000 to buy a V8. An ambulance, a very befitting ambulance, can cost about $150,000. Tell the politicians who are telling you they want to create regions and districts for you to sell the V8s and buy you ambulances. So that when you are sick and you are dying, you can be taken in a befitting ambulance.
To the hospital.
They create new regions, it will buy you ambulance. They create district, it will buy you ambulance. It will bring teachers, it will bring nurses. Definitely won't solve the issue of sanitation. People are dying because of all kinds of sanitation-related
Frankly,
diseases.
your research reports contend that most often the EC, was pushed into creation of constituencies because the executive had created new district. Now, how does this affect the independence of the EC?
The independence of the Electoral Commission probably may not be called into this equation, because the matter here is that because the law says once a district is created, some new structure is created, the EC automatically needs to follow by creating whatever constituencies. Unfortunately, the challenge is that the other side of the argument is that it costs money. So now having to buy new equipment and all of that in order to organize elections. And it eventually costs money because we'll now be paying people who are not supposed to be paid in the first place because they have become MPs and then district chief executives. So it's a sad situation.
So it affects their independence.
It affects their independence in a way is not affected because this is cast in some sort of law.
Because I remember one of your recommendations of the report, suggests that the EC should not, be forced to create new constituencies in the event that the districts are politically created. Now, how successfully can this recommendation be carried out, considering the fact that there is no clear guidelines in determining which district is politically or not politically created?
No, the point we were making was not that districts created, some will be political and non-political. We said the districts that are being created, any new district that will be created today is political. Political here being used in a negative manner, that it's not rooted in science and economics. So the EC should not consequently follow and go and create constituencies because of that. Because anything that is created from now onwards is political. It has no serious backing in finance or economics. Does it mean that when we create new districts, all of a sudden our taxes will increase?
Yeah. But last year, MPP local government, or the government, created about 38 new districts. And I remember the Minister of Local Government, Halima Mahama, indicated that the time that the process happened, it did not lead to the creation of new constituencies. Now, to even quote her, she said, "We have not created any district that will necessitate the creation of constituencies. We have some constituencies which have been turned into districts." So how does this address your concern?
Well, 38 new districts have been created. Isn't that the case? I don't think she
said we have not created any district that will necessitate the creation of constituencies.
But have we
so
had 38 new districts?
Yeah, but we have some constituencies which have been turned into districts.
I don't know what that means, but frankly, we had 216 districts. If 38 have been added, that doesn't look like a diminishing figure. And per the law, which clearly is a very crazy law right now, once these districts have been created, the electoral commission needs to make room for some constituencies and all of that, which will mean that we may have to now add up to the numbers in parliament. I don't know what she's talking about, because I don't know whether she means that by the additional 38 districts
won't constitute a constituency.
Constituencies. Because that's according to her, but not according to what it's supposed, the EC is supposed to continue to follow through, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, because once the districts are created, there are constituencies. They'll be demarcated for elections, and some people need to be standing for some members of parliament or what have you. I've not seen any official letters or formal papers suggesting to us that there'll be no additional MPs to the number. If the government comes out and says we are not going to create any new constituencies, maybe yes. But I'm not taking her word, because even then, the exercise they actually performed itself, it was not needed in the first place. So I cannot trust her word that there wouldn't be new constituencies to be added. I don't know what in any case, she was very evasive when she was being interviewed on this matter anyway. So I don't even know the basis on which we are even discussing her issue. It's a non-issue.
I see, but some experts have advocated for the creation of separate independent entity that would, be in charge of selection of district and constituencies.
The fact of the matter is that's
attainable proposition.
It is a crazy proposition. In fact, if they were minded to think that we've already diced up this country far too much, and the fact that we have 275 members of parliament who are not necessarily adding to the bottom line of this country, they won't even suggest that we need an independent entity to monitor the creation. What we are saying is that we don't, even if the independent body will do that, maybe their mandate will be that we shouldn't create any. But if they shouldn't create any, then we shouldn't have the independent monitoring unit anyway to do anything, right? That will be creating some additional burden to the state, like Council of State, which incidentally has not been effective since I knew it to be.
That he advised the president.
You seriously think that the Council of State have been advising the president to have only 54 ambulances for this country?
Your report.
No, I'm serious.
Your report. No. I do that.
Please.
I would want us to tell that line. Yes, I do that.
I want to ask you a question.
I'm listening.
The Council of State had been doing all this wonderful work. Have they been advising the presidency, both Mahama, all the presidents we've had, some of them who died in taxis, that the health of a country is paramount? That you need the 1,000 ambulances.
The information minister was here some time back, and then he promised that we are going to get or see more ambulances in the system. So I'm sure that will be in the pipeline very soon. I'm not talking for the government, Franklin, but moving on
I'm
to...
I'm just asking you a question. Has the Council of State been advising the presidency to take care of the police?
I'm not a
so
member
that
of the Council of
where they
State,
sleep, it's
Franklin.
not like an abandoned refugee camp in a war zone. The guns they use are Second World War type of guns, Kafugbe. That there are only seven policemen to a single weapon. What do we have evidence of that advice?
So what are you saying?
My point is that
when you now scrap the Council of State? So what are you saying? Is it a useless?
But you are just saying that.
No, but you are talking.
But you are suggesting to me that the Council of State has been advising our presidents, and I'm saying that if they've been advising the president, then possibly the advice has not been heeded.
No, but you are saying that over the years you don't even know what they do anyway.
Yeah, because
I came in to say that.
Let me give you.
Let's conclude on this. I came in to say that yes, of course, obviously, they advise the president.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the advice is not yielding any fruit. And let me give you another further example. I haven't said they should be scrapped.
So what should they do then?
They should ask themselves whether they are being useful to the state. Because if they advise and nothing is happening, then what's the point?
They should advise themselves.
Professor Kilakwa Sawyer did warn Professor Mills at the time in fact, that this XTS deal was a bad deal. They never listened. I can speak for him. Because he came out publicly to say that, look, we advise the president, we need to review our mining laws and all of that. I'm comfortable with people like that because I know he said it in quiet, but he also came out to say it publicly.
Are you scared? Do you think we should scrap the Council of State? I mean, if you're making your point,
Oh, I
your
think the
point
Council
anyway.
of State should actually go.
They should go.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know why we are having a Council of State advising that we should have only 54 ambulances.
Did they
for
tell
30.
you they advise we have 54 ambulances?
Let me tell you something. Any state, an organized and a civilized state, that does not take care of its own in terms of healthcare, sanitation, security of people. It's not a proper state.
So Ghana is not a proper state
I
yet.
I can't call it as a proper state when you have only 54 ambulances, rickety ambulances
We'll be right
for
back.
30 million people.
We'll be right back.
Why you can't?
Franklin Cudjoe, president of IMANI Africa, is here. Now, moving on to other issues, you have been one of the loud voices leading the crusade against the contract between the Ministry of Communications and the Kelny GVG. For the first time, we saw civil society organizations actually taking a common stand by signing a petition, on this issue. How did you come, or how did it come to be?
Well, see, we've been blessed with a lot of very intelligent people in this country. I'd say that Ghana has a lot of very useful brains. Unfortunately, the politics, the high-octane politics, and the deviousness of politicians have made it difficult for the people who have the true heart in order to serve this country in various capacities to speak their mind. Mm-hmm. Well, this Kelny GVG, and I feel very angry, but at the same time, humbled, troubled, and actually disdained to be mentioning the name Kelny GVG. As far as we are concerned, it's a fraudulent entity. It's a faceless entity. We don't know who they are. Even today, I hear they've put out a statement. Nobody signed the statement. We don't know who the person is. And I'm really surprised Joy FM actually put it out, because a statement without any signature is not a statement. It's like you picked it on the street. In any case, this whole matter involves some kind of a contract of a kind. A contract that was cooked quietly, sitting somewhere to be effected. And good-natured people found it and gave it to IMANI, and we found out that there were just too many wrong things about the contract. First of all, they said the contract, what the contract was supposed to come and do is to do traffic monitoring, call monitoring on the various telcos to prevent fraud, to check mobile money transactions, and then some other unnecessary things. But we said, since we started this monitoring business in 2007, we've been spending an average of $30 million to protect $74 million. Don't forget, this gadget, this so-called contract that has been quietly and craftily scammed into somewhere, is to suggest that they are monitoring 6% of the communication service. Well, communication service tax is only 6% of the core taxes. Mm-hmm. And averagely, that uses over $74 million every year. We've been spending $30 million over the last 5 years trying to protect 74 million, not add to 74 million. It was that 74 million that we got JIDA, those scandals. So the money that the telcos pay, it comes to the NCA free money, and then the politicians behave like vultures, get into it, and then scam all of us. But this contract is to say, is the latest of the kind, which is now to say, we are taking the 30 million far higher. This time around, we are taking it to $178 million to protect $74 million. Madam, even if you're a mad woman, I believe that mad people even believe, they know when they are crossing the street. Have you seen any mad person being knocked down before? No. Unless they are sleepy. They know very well the dangers. would you in your right senses spend $178 million to protect $74 million? We've asked this question. The promoters, the sponsors of this scam have come back to us and say, oh, well, yeah, we know 74 million, but it's most likely that it's more than 74 million. So we'll find something more.
Yeah.
Then we say, okay, in that case, why don't you do the sensible thing? And I'm very harsh here. It's a hard truth, by the way. Why don't you do the most sensible thing? Do a risk analysis. Find out exactly what you are looking for by investing in some rudimentary basis of analysis. All telephone calls mobile phone calls are mediated in such a way that the call data records are collected on something called the CDs. So it's like an Excel sheet, which has all the records. It is from there that you can determine the amount of taxes you want to pay.
No, more, but I remember she said the one who appointed me, hold on, this is the Minister of Communications, so she said the one who appointed me supports the deal that has strengthened and emboldened me. He wants to ensure that we get the right tasks for the telcos and has therefore given me his blessings to this deal.
But that's rich. It's the only reason why they are going on and on about this. Because the person who has appointed her has emboldened her in the face of common sense arguments that he should go ahead.
So aren't you, are you saying that hold on, are you saying that the Nanado is not aware, our president is not aware of this deal?
But the lady is saying that the person who appointed her has emboldened her to go ahead. And we are saying that in the face of evidence, I'm sure Nanado has not been properly briefed about this deal.
But
because if it's
sure he's heard
about it. And we still believe that he's heard and is still probably processing. Otherwise, he's been bamboozled with all kinds of terminologies. I was just trying to land. I'll land in just a minute. So these people come back and say, okay, we'll do this. And we say, listen, the equipment to make tests into the data records of the telcos costs $55,000. Go and buy it. Make random calls. You can make 1,000 random calls into their systems. When the CDLs come at the end of the month and you don't see those calls, those numbers in them, you raise fundamental issues of fraud. Let me land. Then you ask the PwCs, the Ernst & Youngs, the KPMGs of this world to help your NCA and your GRA to cost proper audit into the system. When you do that fundamentally, you would have saved a lot of money. It costs $55,000 to do that first. You don't need to go and pay somebody $1.5 million every month in order to tell you what you should have done as the first basis. So our arguments are two. One, you don't even need the so-called monitoring because you'll be going beyond the billing notes to go and spy and start listening into calls. In Kenya, the High Court just threw out a similar deal. Fraudulent, they call it call monitoring fraud. In fact, they call it counterfeit. Right? Everywhere else that GVG has worked, they've either been chased out, they've either been bribing officials. In Liberia, they did $25 million. In Senegal, their contract was cancelled. In Tanzania, the president had to sack the regulator because the president said he told me a lie about these monitoring people. Eventually, when they claim they have connected, it turns out that it was because of high taxes that got the revenue increase, and not because they did any work. What we are saying, therefore, is that instead of doing this due diligence first, you are going to pay somebody for 10 years, $1.5 million. Whether they find anything or not, you pay them. And I ask myself, and I ask you, when Talo, Cosmos were coming into this country to drill oil, they brought their own money. Eventually, we didn't tell them that give us $100 million, whether you find oil or not. Is that what we did? They came, they found, and then we decided we put a tax on what they found, and then we got our money. In fact, if you combine, it's about 15% or 16% taxes that we gain from all the oil that is drilled. You need to apply these basic principles. That's all we are saying. Even if you want to go ahead and do the so-called monitoring, why don't you base it on incremental revenue you'll find far and beyond the 74 million That's our case.
Yeah, but I remember you also called the minister to resign. Why?
Yeah, because I've seen, I think she's fairly incompetent. I don't think she knows the job, really. I mean, to be told, and I've said it clearly, I don't think she's aware of what she's doing, really. And that is the reason why I said she should step aside. But beyond the risk of making this look like a personal vendetta, because I have nothing personal against her. In fact, indeed, our IMANI, we awarded the ministry last year for coming up as one of the inspirational public sector leaders, which they've been carrying around, telling everybody that, oh, even IMANI awarded that. And we told them the award is not a lifetime achievement award. It is not an insurance against bad behavior. We didn't know that we were cooking up some contract somewhere. So now that we found, in fact, we are good people to collect the award back.
I see, but
we won't collect it. We believe that they can still behave well going forward. We believe they can still behave
by
well.
cancelling this deal.
By cancelling this deal. So we'll keep the award. We'll let them keep. In fact, they should keep it. But they should be aware that when the history is told, the supervised, one of the most unfortunate, one of the most, I mean, I don't know what adjectives to use. Quite frankly, sad deals. To carry money, $178 million, and hand over to people.
You claim, right, but you claim that you received that, threat as a result of, the campaign against the government on the deal. You lodged a complaint to the police. What is the situation now? And, are you still being overtly or tacitly?
Well, I believe that they are still investigating the matter. I mean, I didn't want to become like a crybaby or something. In fact, at the time,
did they call you? Did you receive a text?
This is how it happened. So a very senior official at the Interior Ministry informed me that he was part of a conversation by some police people and national security persons. And the conclusion was that they have to find a way of shutting me up. Then he felt very, very worried and got in touch. And I said, well, look, people talk and talk. I said, no, my brother, take this thing serious. It's not a joke.
At the Ministry of Interior?
Yes. It's not a joke, so be careful. So if I was forced to, upon his insistence, to now call the police high command. And then they directed me to go and make a complaint.
But did he give you these individuals' names?
No, he definitely wouldn't give me his name. And I'm not ready to mention his name either. I don't see why I should do that. I mean, the law protects people, informants and all of that. To be told later, I think 2 days later, I got a call from some strange person. The name I've just forgotten. I hope I remember the name. But I told the police CID, by the way, calls me and says, you want to die, eh? And I said, who is this? And then the person hung up. But Truecaller brings out the names. So I believe I gave the number out, and I'm sure the police is doing what they have to do.
I see.
Yeah, so these matters, it's only cowards and thieves who normally operate like this. So, for me, I haven't been of the view that
you need a bodyguard, or don't you think you need some bodyguard?
I've put in some security, which
home?
I can't share.
Please don't.
But clearly, we are picking up all kinds of signals, and I hope they don't carry it, whatever they want to carry it through, because they'll fail and they'll be found out. I mean, that's all I've got to say about this matter.
Early last month, you indicated that the Akufo-Addo-led administration has so far been responsive to the hallmark from, to the hard talk from your analysis, like from your outfit IMANI. You described this as a hallmark of the NPP government. With this kind of reaction you're getting, from them, isn't this like bad criticisms on your reception to the government? Well,
let's say that governance is obviously a continuum, and some actors at some point may be acting in certain ways that will give you the confidence that the responses are useful. Unfortunately, I can't take all that I said earlier back, but I can take about 50% of it back right now to say that on this matter, we haven't received any assurances at all. We've not received responses. We sent to the various Ministry of Communication, NCA, and PPA.
No one has responded.
Nothing. And we've not had anything. And so for me, when I said that they are responsive to our hard criticisms, of course they are responsive. Their response is coming. Some insulted us, some calumnized us, some called us. In fact, the minister, a deputy minister, said that we've taken bribes from the telcos. So, if we want to count that as part of the...
So you've exhausted all your good holiday from the government?
Not quite. I mean, again, there are various actors in government, so you don't want to say that the entire government. I mean, if a delinquent deputy minister goes ahead to make very fictitious claims, you can't use that as a basis to judge the entire government, right? So, the point we are making really is that at the end of the day, 50% of that goodwill is taken back right now. I'm still holding it in my bag. I think I can give it to them comfortably if this Kelny GVG matter is solved nicely. We all get to know who are behind the Kelny GVG, why this contract ought to be set aside, so that we get to know, and then get on to the serious business of doing good work. Because I think the president runs a risk of his appointees, ministers,
but I'm
trying
also
to
sure,
make his work difficult for him.
But for the sake of time, I'm sure you want to continue your crusade against the deal.
Oh, yes.
And to a conclusion. So from the sequence of events and the position of the government, how do you foresee this ending?
Well, if we don't hear anything in the next week, we have brought together about 24 CSOs leaders, think tank leaders. Yes, because we told them this is not about IMANI. And we briefed them properly and they came on board. There's a further 1 week ultimatum that is hanging. If that there's a court action being prepared already by another civil society group. So there are a number of things happening, and I think that
it will end well.
In due time, it must end well.
But Franklin, lastly, finally, you posted something very interesting on your Facebook timeline yesterday, and you made some allegations regarding an overpriced contract of I think 165 million euros. You indicated that the contract was signed in 2015 under the Mahama administration. What contract, Franklin, were you referring to?
The contract was signed in 2015.
And how did you arrive? Well, that was what you said. Arrive at the conclusion it was overpriced.
The contract wasn't signed in 2015. The works actually ended in 2015. Well, this was the Ada Estuary project, really, right? And we've been working with international engineers, and we've gotten international quotes for what the drawings that were put in place in order for that project to take. And by estimation, the drawings were supposed to cost about 63 million euros. If we added a further 37 million euros in order for works and all of that, that comes to 100 million euros. But the project was priced as 265 million euros. And the companies involved have all been talked to, and the representation they are making will bring all of that in due light. There's a director of the hydrological services of the ministry who has been very adamant, has never responded to any of the calls, to the extent that this current Minister for Works and Housing has written to him to respond to the allegations and everything that has been written. He's never done any. So that matter is coming up. Sometimes the bureaucrats actually add to the problems of this country. The politician may be well-intentioned, but the bureaucrats, in this case, the bureaucrat, I believe, is the one who has a lot of questions to answer. But there's 165 million euro that we need to find.
Yeah, we need to find.
The point to make is that this has become a contract republic, and rather than see to the needs of the people, we are signing contracts and leaving our people in abject penury. And I think it's unfortunate, really. I have been saying that I've been to over 50 countries in my short life since I started this work. And would you know that all my peers I started this work with, anytime we are talking, Singapore, Malaysia, wherever, they tell me interesting things.
Like what?
Well, we now have in Singapore, we are even returning budget surplus. Everybody is going to have a budget surplus, and the budget surplus is being shared amongst the citizens.
That would be nice.
They did it.
That would be nice.
And then they
When is it happening here?
And then they ask me, what's new on your end? I said, oh, we are like changing government. So my flags. Nothing is happening.
It's a pleasure talking to you, Franklin.
It's always been a
Thank
pleasure.
you so much for
Pleasure
taking
to
on
be
the
here.
truth.
Cheers.
Franklin Cudjoe is the president of IMANI Africa. He's been our guest tonight. Thank you so much for coming. You've been watching The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes, Dawa Industrial City and Pulse Fitness Gym. Catch a repeat of the program tomorrow morning. It's at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. My name is Nana Akosia Kunedu Asante Samuelson. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. Bye.